What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Bless. I'm here with the homie Let Me Know, and you are tuned in to the Moment of Truth podcast. Today, I'm excited. We have a very special guest, a gentleman I haven't seen in a minute, but I know from back in the day. Why don't you introduce yourself, Mr. Click?
Yes, Mr. Click.
Mr. Click.
It's Click. What up?
Introduce
it's David Click Cox, you know?
David Click Cox.
Where did the click come from?
Where did the click come from? Shit. I like how you just jump right into it, you know what I mean?
I'm always in that.
At what point did it click for you?
You know what I mean?
At what point did it click?
I was a b-boy.
Oh, wow.
I was a dancer. And, somebody gave me the name Clickety Click. And that's really where it all stemmed from, you know?
Dope.
I had the magic in my feet, you know what I'm saying?
There you go. There you go.
On that note, I'm curious. Like, is that your intro to hip hop? You came up as a b-boy or DJ, rapper? Like where?
Yeah, no, I was a b-boy first.
B-boy
before anything else. Yeah, I was a dancer.
Coincidentally, so was I.
From the Getty up, you know what I mean? So, but I think like the funny thing is like I think most people in the 80s. Dating myself, but in the 80s is like if you weren't like most people dance. Like dancing wasn't like a thing that like today where it's like, you know, not everybody dances. It's a rare commodity.
Everybody wanted to be a b-boy.
Everybody wanted to dance. Like everybody danced at parties.
Actually, I think at that point the b-boy was like what the MC is now. Everybody wants to rap now. Everybody wanted to be a b-boy then.
If you were a rapper or MC, like you were really special because not everybody did that.
That's true.
But everybody danced.
Everybody was trying.
You know, I might not have been the best b-boy, but I b-boyed.
100%.
For sure.
Definitely,
know what I mean?
that was definitely prominent in the culture, especially with movies like Beat Street and Breakin' and all that.
Exactly. And then and you had a couple friends that all DJ because you know they stole their parents' records, and that's just how it happened. You know,
True. It was from the DJ to the b-boy, and then onwards.
Exactly.
So for those who might not know, who are not in the music business, why don't you tell us, briefly how you got into the game and what it is that you do. When I met Click,
when did you meet Click?
When I met Click, I just started working with Guru at the time, and we were working on doing my first album, which ended up being Plattenberg the Movement. And Click had reached out to me, and I believe you were working at Universal Music Canada at the time, and he was just kind of reached out to me like an OG and was like, "Yo, let's sit down and politic and."
Well, I was like, I'm a big Gang Starr fan. So first and foremost, like I forget, I don't even know who put you in front of me, but somebody did. And it just crossed me. It's like, yo, this kid from Montreal can really spit. And he's like down with Gang Starr. I was like, what?
What is this?
Not a typical story.
I never heard of this guy. What are you talking about? I was like, get the hell out of here.
And I was like 17 at the time. I was mad young.
Nobody was doing that.
You know? So I just kind of reached out to yo, I want to hear some of your music. And, you know, I want to see what's popping. What do you got going on? And, you know, you sent me some stuff, and then, you know, we just always stay connected. I come to Montreal, you take me around. Yeah. You're just good people. So I was like, yo, so that's really how the connection started.
We became friends, and he came out to Montreal. I came to see him in TO, and then as my career would progress, he was always super supportive. He founded the Stylus Awards and reached out to us to present, which is actually, funny enough, the first time I ever met Drake was at his event at the Stylus Awards.
Yeah, I mean, like definitely, I guess, you know, being in the seat of, you know, doing A&R for Universal. I mean, that's what I think a lot of people attach me to. But like having the opportunity like to travel the country, and like meet people and see who are the movers and shakers, like that was a really blessing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, to me, Click has always been like one of the top 5 tastemakers in hip hop music.
Respect. You got like one of those sound things right now.
all in post. We do that all in post.
The horn. But definitely, man, he was definitely one of the guys, you know, at the forefront of the business of hip hop when it was still developing in Canada. So pre-Drake and pre, The Weeknd and a lot of these guys, Click was one of these guys at the forefront really organizing an infrastructure.
Well, that's...
what I'm saying? For there to be an outlet.
I'm really glad you say that. Really glad you say that shit. Taking a moment
The truth.
A moment of
I
truth
see the
right
reflection
now.
in
It's
like
the
your
truth.
eyes.
It's the truth, because I'll tell you something. He was a guy, and it wasn't just about Toronto, even though he's a Toronto
Well,
guy.
you said he went all over.
And he supported the Toronto guys, but he would make sure he'd be like, "What's popping in Montreal?" He used to call me and ask me, "What's up with the French? Who do I look for?"
I wanted to know. Well,
Yeah.
let me take you a step back because you asked some questions. Well, I'm not actually an original Toronto guy.
That is actually, I knew that. So
You know,
take us there.
I'm originally I grew up in Edmonton. You know what I'm saying? I was in a rap group in the early '90s.
Not surprising.
You know what I'm saying?
Not surprising.
That had some notoriety. And
But you've been in Toronto forever. as
Yeah,
long as
but
I've known you.
I moved to Toronto in like '94. So, you know, being a guy who I guess you can relate to this, especially in the English hip hop world, is like, you know, Toronto was always the helm
Sure,
of
course,
that.
of course.
So when you come from another city, you always have like this outer perspective of
Sure,
things.
sure.
So when I got into being in the scene and doing my thing and then getting into the role that I fit, my mindset was never Toronto focused. It was always national focus. So I wanted to know, because I wasn't thinking the best shit could come from Toronto. The
Could come
best
from
shit
anywhere.
Could come from fucking New Brunswick. I don't know.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
I don't know about that, but
Well, when I was a kid,
classified-
but you know what I'm saying?
when I
like,
was a kid, one of the first kind of, you know, Canadian hip hop groups that I was looking up to was the Rascals. From
Definitely.
Van and the Rascals with
Really
what was
Living.
the first album. I can't yank the
Ragamuffin
plug
Rascals
on the
or-
vibe that
Yeah.
I'm
Really living.
Bro,
Yeah.
that was a serious record,
yeah.
and that was early, like hieroglyphics times.
Well,
So-
that was the time that I met those guys when they were Ragamuffin Rascals.
Yeah,
'cause,
shout out to Red and
my
everybody.
crew was the Max and Definitive, and we had a song called Jungle Man that came out around the same time as
Dope.
them.
I actually
And
didn't know that. I
Yeah,
didn't know
so we were you know, some of my very first shows were in Vancouver.
Makes sense.
You see what I'm saying? Because
Makes
we're so
sense.
close to
Yeah,
there, right?
right.
So that's how I met those dudes from way back.
They were really ahead of their time. Shout out to Rascals.
Yes.
man.
I remember that video with the fence.
Fence, yes.
Really living was
Shit
the track. I
dope.
remember
Really Living. That was it. I remember watching.
track.
I was probably around what, 94?
It was 92, 93
Yeah.
around that time. So
93, 94.
Because I think they were, I don't know if they were nominated at the same time or something, because I remember we all came out to Toronto
For them MVAs.
for, I think it was either MVAs or Junos, because we were nominated for a Juno in 93.
Wow.
Oh wow. Good
Won
for
a
you.
Much Music Award in 93. It's all around that same time.
Yo, so your videos must be on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta go look that up right away.
Yeah, no, my crew, we definitely were like at the top of the enchilada from Alberta at that time, you know,
of course.
which was crazy to think about because it's
That
like
was even coming out that early.
But I remember because we all had came to Toronto at the same time, and we all seen each other.
Yeah.
And it's always I'll never forget that because it was a really pivotal time of like Toronto hip hop and everything that was going on, like
Socrates and all that starting to bubble.
Just even
pre
like,
Ivan
like
Berry.
Beat
Factory?
no, after like Ivan
Maestro's
was,
on the
Ivan's
way
been
out.
around in the 80s.
I know
you
Ivan was around, but the Beat Factory compilation came out just
It was
after
just
that.
it was just after that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like I remember we did a show in like Mississauga. And I remember that show because it was like 12 acts on the show. And one of the acts on the show, I'll never forget, was a crew called CIA. And those guys, Ramel, who went on to be a producer and work with like Melanie Durant, and is like best friends with like Little X.
I think I know him. I think I know him. Yeah, yeah.
And Director X, like I remember this vividly because we were sitting at this party at this show with all these acts performing, and I remember this guy sitting on like the speaker drawing.
X.
Yeah, and I was like, I remember looking over his shoulder and be like, yo, this motherfucker can draw.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, what's your name? And I remember him telling me, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, shout out
Like,
X,
just,
man.
Just the scene at that was at its early stages.
Shout out Little
and there
X,
was a lot
man.
of
He was
cats
always
doing shit.
another guy who was so humble and so integral in just like the development of the scene, because so many people discovered Canadian hip hop in recent years with the massive commercial success that we've been having. But there was really a good 20 years of guys like yourself, and even at the tail end of that, guys like myself trying to get the scene taken seriously across the board.
Well, to go back to what we're talking about, I went on a tangent, but the whole infrastructure thing you talk about, and
Very
like
important.
helping out with that is like,
And I would love for you to talk about that.
That was for me like a big part of like I couldn't just sign somebody to a record deal. I needed to make sure that if I signed them, they would be successful.
Yeah.
And for them to be successful means that they have to understand the business side of things.
Sure.
Like having a real manager that can really move and shake
right.
and make the right decisions, and having an agent and having a lawyer
and having tours that you can attach them
exactly.
to, and a movement that can propel them. Because something that I've spoken about before, sorry to cut you off, that I felt we were always lacking in Montreal and in Quebec as general, is we always had dope producers, amazing DJs, and some talented MCs. Montreal is a flavorful city. It's a nightlife city.
Yep.
We've always had it popping. The one thing we didn't have, which hindered a lot of people,
Right.
was we had no local infrastructure. We didn't have many guys like Click organizing a Stylus Awards
Right.
here. You understand?
Right.
Where the scene could celebrate each other and create situations where people could really network and
I think
collaborate, and that hurt a lot of people.
Bless, I think they tried it once. They did like a Montreal Hip Hop Awards. I don't know who the organizers were, but I think.
Oh yeah, well, I won an award.
There was like a one, right? There was like
I think I won too. Shout out Goofy Welder.
Oh, Goofy, yeah,
Goofy, right?
he did do that. I remember that.
Goofy. But I mean, you were doing it obviously, from being at Universal and being in Toronto, you're doing it on a national scale, and you were able to bring all these cats such as myself. Like I said, if it wasn't
Into
for
one center.
if it wasn't for you
Yeah.
bringing me to the Stylus Awards, I think I presented 1 year, and I performed another year for the Guru tribute. That's how I met.
totally forgot about that.
That's
Oh,
how I
man.
met Drake.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
it's,
saying?
It's crazy because this is really like blowing my mind. This conversation is like really like.
I told you it's a good show.
Yeah, it's
It's just memory lane.
it's not just memory lane. It's like a kind of a thing for myself. Like I really pride myself on education, and I think in the last couple of years I really realized like that's part of my calling of who I am as a person.
Amazing.
Perfect. Give back.
And giving back, and I think it's because I came up in an era where there was nobody really doing that for me.
That's right.
And so like, you come up in like the early 90s, late 80s.
There's not really much before you.
Right. And the guys that were doing it, they were all trying to figure it out as they were moving along.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm asking them questions like, well, I don't know, like this is what we do, and and then at the same time back then too, everybody was this. Right. Everybody held their fucking shit in. I'd be like, yo, how did you get to this? Yo, man, you got to go find that out for yourself. Like nobody
People want to be mysterious.
Yeah, nobody wanted to share contacts. Nobody wanted to be They wanted to blow up, but the unity wasn't there.
I understand that because certain people don't, like, they haven't graduated to that level yet. So when you say like go do it yourself, like I take it from both sides, because like for me personally, like I had to put my Facebook profile on private. Right. Because I have people on there that are friends of mine that other people saw that I was friends with. And this is like, just as an example, Lights. Right. Okay, Lights, Toronto native. We've done videos with her in the past, and cool chick, and I keep in touch. I have people that hit her up from my friends groups, local musicians, hitting her up because like this is her actual like friend profile. It's not. This is not her fan page. This is
her
like,
personal profile.
Right.
So I had to put my shit
you don't
on
want
private.
to invade her privacy. But I think what me and Click were more getting to was that
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm throwing the other side.
I get it.
Is that, especially as him being an A&R, when he's looked to sign an artist, you're looking to sign a movement. You're looking to sign a support system underneath that artist. And if you can't create that, or the artist doesn't come with that, you're fucked with launching them.
And I guess the other thing is this: the type of person I am.
That was amazing.
I'm not a shark. I'm. You could ask anybody that about me. I've never been that type of guy to really try to take advantage of people. That's not my game. But I worked for a corporation. You know what I mean? I work for a business, but I would always try to tell people, Leo, let me teach you how to build your own house, lay down your own foundation, so that businesses can come and visit your house and be part of your movement. And when it doesn't work out, you kick them out the fucking house. Not the opposite way around, where like, oh, come into our house. You can come in, and we're gonna
share our resources,
the fuck out of you, and then we're gonna kick you out your house and back on your face.
Yeah.
And that's
your boy DeRozan just got that.
Who did?
Your boy DeRozan didn't have his own house, and they sent him packing.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I totally agree.
That's been my whole philosophy in life, and I think it's because of like I came in the game early and learned a lot of shit.
And you're right.
And did a lot of wrong things too before I even worked it for a living.
That's right. And what's essential to that, I think, is collaboration. Because people thought back in the day it was me and my crew, me and Mike, and the opposite. The way you see artists winning to this day in the States is when Meek puts out a record, Khaled reposts it, and this and that, and everybody kind of they pool their resources together.
Isn't that how
and
Drake
they kind
started?
of communally decide who's relevant. You see what I'm trying to say?
There's an inner circle.
They vote for it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Plus,
know?
there's an inner circle, and I think that's how the Meek Drake beef started, right?
Well,
he didn't retweet his shit or something. That's what started the whole thing, I think.
I think he didn't turn in a verse
pay attention
or
to
something.
gossip shit, but yeah.
But regardless,
fair.
I teach now, right? I teach. I'm part of like the Remix Project. I teach over there.
I want to get into that. I know a lot about it.
I also teach at Metalworks, and it's like something that I always like at the beginning of all my classes. I try to start my class with like, let's talk about the business world. I want the artists, the students to be inclined to like what is happening and being ahead of the curve in the business world. You know what I mean? And every class, I'm like, so what's new in this week's news? There'll always be one motherfucker that's gonna come up with some. Oh, well, I heard that Kanye West like did something. I'm like, motherfucker, that ain't news. That's gossip. I don't want no gossip. I want motherfucking real shit.
Yeah, what's really happening?
Talk to me about what's happening with the stocks of Spotify right now.
Yeah.
Talk to me like, give me the realness.
Cut through
like,
the bullshit.
Yeah, and I'm trying to encourage them to be a little bit, in tune with the business. You know,
that's right. So before we go there, because I know about the Remix Project, but I want you to explain to people who don't know what it is. I want to kind of go chronologically. So you go from being part of this hip hop group, you come from Edmonton, you move to TO.
Yeah.
How do you get involved on the business side, and how do you eventually get hired by Universal?
I mean, I was part of the scene, I guess, for like maybe, almost, I guess, 8 years before working for a record company. And during that time, like, you're going to parties, you're connecting with people, I worked at a record store throughout all that time.
Where?
Sam the Record Man.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
The original.
Yeah. And then I also started working for Ramos, Jonathan Ramos.
Shout out Jonathan Ramos.
And I knew
Who's Jonathan Ramos, gentlemen? Sorry.
John is probably one of the biggest concert promoters in Toronto.
Okay. He booked us in Gangsta.
If you know Rap Season, if you follow Rap Season on online, they're definitely a media company now from a standpoint of how they present content and all that type of stuff. But they also do a lot of concerts, like huge concerts. He
was the main hip hop promoter in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they like the Ricky D, or are they the Eventco? And in comparison to us,
I would say they're the Ricky D because they're not Eventco's like Live Nation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
But
Peter Jackson would be a nice one.
Nah,
Ramos was very, very corporate.
But doesn't Peter book the
well,
tours?
Ramos sold his company. He literally sold his company to another company. Now he works for Inc., which is like one of the biggest entertainment companies in Toronto. They own the Rebel nightclub. They own like a lot of the clubs.
So he works with Charles.
Yes, he works for Charles, right? So so now he's not just like booking shows. He's booking shows under
Shout
Inc.,
out my homegirl Helen also.
and he's also bringing shows into their establishments. You know what I'm saying?
venues.
So, I worked with him when he had his own company called REMG.
I remember
And
that's
so-
when he used to book all of that shit.
So I was like the runner. I was basically the
Picked artists up from
promoter.
the airport.
They picked him up
Whatever
from the
needed to
airport.
be done, guy.
Whatever needed to be done, guy. I was that dude. You know what I mean? And
Make
I
sure
knew
the street
John.
team was on point.
I knew John from the first time I moved to the city. So we had a relationship, and
Great guy.
I think one of the most successful things we did together was Elemental. Like,
I remember.
I co-promoted those shows with him, and they were like a weekly that we did. And our first show ever was Slum Village.
Dope.
That was the first show they ever did in Canada.
Dope.
You know what I mean? And we were doing, bringing up acts that were kind of on the cusp. They weren't like big yet, but like they could feel like
Toronto had a
300, 500
vibrant
people.
underground scene. Cats like the Grassroots and oh man, what was that group? One of the guys passed away. Nefarious.
Yeah.
And the first show I ever did in TO before I met you, and even before I started messing with Guru and them, Planet Mars.
Oh, you were at Planet Mars? Get the fuck out of here.
Fuck yeah, bro.
You know about Planet Mars.
I performed at Planet Mars.
See, that's insane. See that because that's before Elemental. So
Paid my dues.
Planet Mars
I
is
was
like
15.
a real. It was like our Toronto's Lyricist
Lyricist
Lounge. You know what I'm saying? And it was an amazing environment. I met a lot of cats there.
That was the
and
first
that
time
was-
I was introduced to the real Toronto hip hop scene in
Yes.
those years.
Well, we'll MC. It was an MC environment. It was
Yeah.
mad. Like
Everybody was there.
everybody
Socks,
had
me, Danny
bars.
O.
Yeah.
Man.
Was Cardi around those days or was too early?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Cardi
I
was
mean,
Cardi
yeah, he was definitely Cardinal at that time.
was
Yeah,
Cardinal?
yeah, he was definitely
Early Cardinal.
Early Cardinal.
More rapping than the chanting at that point.
I don't know about that.
I guess he
He's
started.
he's always had that.
He's always
in his
had both
music.
vibes. He's
You
always
know,
had
Naughty
both vibes.
Dread was one of the first.
You're right,
tunes,
you're right,
like,
you're right, you're right,
Yo,
you're
no,
right.
he always had that in his music. But I think in that early stage, from doing those concerts, elementals, and all
Mm-hmm.
that type of stuff, I just had built a rep for myself,
Absolutely.
and I basically got a job at BMG first in marketing. So I got hired there because of all the shows that I was.
Who was
doing.
up there working with you? What was his name?
Hizza, who was actually from Ottawa,
Mm-hmm.
you know, originally.
I have a question.
Um,
And it goes with this. I'm not just going to throw
Yeah,
in
yeah,
another
yeah.
DeMar DeRozan here. When come in from the get anything, do everything guy, and you go into like more of a corporate structure, what goes on in your brain, or what went on in your brain that made you want to like kind of go from the rapper b-boy to mainly like
well, it was definitely not a b-boy anymore by that time. Like,
Right.
I'd already hung up that
We're
that
fast forward
angle
years.
of me a little bit earlier. You know what I mean? But I think like it was just the next progression. Like I think like it's not a matter of like some guys are really at their prime in a certain. You know, like you see an artist at a certain point, or you see like, I mean, by artist, it could be like a painter, it could be graph art, anybody, and then somebody comes in and wants to like exploit that, you know, and then they're like, how do I adapt to this environment? I never had that problem because my dream ultimately was always to work for a record company. Like I grew up like I want to do A&R.
Good for you. No, that's dope.
And throughout the 90s, I put out my own 12 inches with my crew. Like I had done also other shit.
You had done the groundwork.
I'd done the
to
groundwork
figure
as
out-
like a guy like, fuck, this is hard. Like, you know what I mean? I put out records and had Primo playing our records on his air, had Stretch Armstrong, and all those guys. Like I had gone through the trenches of like independent hip hop.
So was it more a structure thing?
And it was more, it was definitely like, fuck this. Like I feel like I was missing like some foundation or some secrets or whatever the fuck it is. I was like, I feel
stuff
like
to learn and you're like,
I was
let's
like,
go.
yo, if I join through, you know, a real record label system, maybe I can learn
Gain a
things
world
that
of knowledge.
I don't know. You know what I mean? And so when that landed on my lap, I kind of took the opportunity because I was like, let me try it. So I was never like, you know, scared or something like that. From
was a natural progression.
It was a natural progression for me. You know what I'm saying?
So from BMG, you start over there. What was some of the first projects you worked at BMG?
Oh fuck! The crazy thing about that is like I can't remember the first because
Some of the notable projects.
because we were like running the whole department of street marketing across the country. You're like 10 projects at a time. Like it's like so much, and we weren't just doing hip hop. We're doing rock artists, pop artists. Like I remember, you know, pushing Pink's very first album before Pink like ever came out. You know what I'm saying? And I'll share a funny story actually. I remember I had because back then I had to, you know, draft interns. I had to draft street guys to come in and not street guys. Sorry, I had to draft street team people. I had to draft, you know, some cats to come in and like be willing to hand out some stickers and get clubs and go to universities and put up posters, all that type of jazz. You know what I'm saying? And I had this one kid. I won't mention his name, but I remember. I don't know. He must have been like 17, 18 years old. I don't know why he thought he could kick game to Pink. I'm like, yo. And that was like, yo, you're no longer on the team.
And he's
like,
no level.
Where this is not professionalism. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
and he's a street team guy handing out the flyers.
I'm handing out your flyers.
I'm trying to bone. What up,
Pink? Yeah. I was like, yo.
Hey, you know what, though?
This ain't going to work, kid.
But, yo, it's kind of a good story, though. I mean, that's a great way to get fired.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you about the time I was trying to work my way up at BMG, but then I got immediately fired for trying to bang Pink? That's a good one.
It's funny, but
Good
Pink What else? Rap Essentials, actually. Well, Rap Essentials had their I think the third volume that came out. They had Solitaire's song, Easy to Slip on it. I worked that. Ghetto Concept, the Too Much for Much record.
Classic.
That one I worked.
Rascals was
Capone
on.
Noriega's second album.
Rascals
Bad
was on
Boys,
at that time.
Bad Boy Records, whatever came out on Bad Boys.
Bad Boy
I
was
worked.
always through BMG.
And then even on the rock side, I was doing like Stereophonics. I was doing Dave Matthews Band. I was learning so many different angles.
An amazing opportunity.
Yeah,
to see
and also learning marketing, because it's not just like, a lot of people don't realize, like, street marketing is not just putting up posters and shit. It's like you're sitting and working with a marketing department to figure out, like, how are we going to get this artist
involved in the community,
not just involved in the community. How are we going to get people's fucking attention? How are they even going to know
in the
beyond,
scene? I mean, like,
especially if the act doesn't have a hit at radio,
like making sure a guy making sure a guy like Ramos, is willing to give them that opening slot, even if they don't have anything going on at radio.
But a lot of it for me was DJs. Like, I really, especially in that era, something else I didn't mention is, like, I had a radio show. So from 89 to 94.
Flow or no?
No, I had a college.
There was no flow yet.
I had a college hip hop radio show on University of Alberta. Before I even moved, I did college radio. That was actually the first, I'd say, like, real thing I think you could say is, like, okay, what, like, dancing to me is like, that's simple shit. I was doing that from a kid, man. I'm busting.
First real thing.
You know what I'm saying?
This was the first time it was
had a radio show.
This is like the first thing that's like, I feel like I indulge myself into hip hop culture in like a different way. But, like, I always was into like DJ culture and radio.
And by the way, our Spotify, our YouTube were shows like his. That's the only time you were going to be exposed to new hip hop.
100%. And it was hard in Alberta, I must tell you. Alberta is like, because I was a straight East Coast kind of dude, even though I'm born in LA and I have like all this LA roots. But like, I listened to like
Your
a
heart
lot.
was in the East Coast
I listened to some West Coast shit, but I was heavy on the East Coast shit. And back then, in 89, 90, 91, what was popping?
NWA.
Exactly. My phone would not stop fucking ringing. And I would be like, I don't play that here. I don't play that here.
You're like, I play Eric B and Rakim and Slick Rick and Big Daddy.
I was playing Rakim. I was playing Big Daddy. I was playing Gangstar. I was playing Cool C. I was playing a lot of that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, yo, you can get that shit on the other show that plays later on.
Because I know it sounds weird, but that was almost commercial to us. Like, we were so in this headspace of like,
you guys are both very much East Coast guys, right?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
That's where your heart is as far as your favorite.
But
right?
I have to say, I really got into West Coast music late. Like, when I started working for a record store is when I started getting the West Coast shit. Because I used to get in fights with guys that come in the store and like, yo, can I get some Mac Dre? Yo, can I get some Spice One? I'm like, can I get some E40? I'm like, yo, what are you doing? And I'd be like, yo, why you want to buy that? Do you have the Boogie Down production record? And I used to get in fights with these like
there was
West
always
Coast
guys like him at the HMVs. But that was dope too, because as a young kid, like, we would get education from, you know what I'm saying?
From cats like me. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'd be like, okay, they'd be like, yo, listen to this. If you're into that, listen to this. And then that's how we might discover more obscure shit.
Bingo. You know what I'm saying?
But you're the original suggestion artist.
Oh, totally.
He's like, fuck are you buying that book for? You know, the guy in the old school bookstore.
But I guess what I was trying to get at all in all is like, I always loved, like, I collect records. I'm a DJ. I've always been connected to that part of life. And so when I started working at BMG, that was like a huge thing for me. Is like,
it was a step up as a student.
It sink your teeth into that.
It was all about, I need to make sure I know every fucking DJ all across Canada. That was my goal out of anything, is like, I want to know who has a radio show, who's in a club, who's there. That's why
he really did know, to the point where he found my phone number and we were shooting a video and my boy had the phone. He goes, some guy from Universal just called. And I'm like, well, why didn't you give me the fucking phone? He's like, because you were shooting. And then like, he literally would seek the right people out. You know what I mean?
I've always been. I'm always like that to this day. Like, I think that's what makes me a good manager. Is like, I don't sit and wait for the phone to ring. I don't sit and wait to find somebody's phone.
You have to. I mean,
the internet is our best friend. Like, I could find anybody's info at least,
and shoot your shot at least. Like, peace.
Exactly.
Like, I just want to connect. Want to introduce myself. And sometimes, down the line, they might not respond immediately because you're not on their radar, but down the line you might meet at an event
Bingo.
and then it clicks.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
But yeah, I think that was a big part of it for me is like learning that trait. And to go into Stylus Awards, which was like a
Wait,
DJ.
you're skipping a major part. We got to go chronologically.
All right.
So you literally at this point got to meet everybody in the scene.
Wait!
This is my show.
No, because I don't want us to go on a tangent and then people not understand the history.
Mark,
I didn't
you
realize
brought
this show was going to be about interviewing me. I thought we were just going to be shooting the shit.
Oh,
I'm loving this. No,
we'll shoot some shit.
I have some rapid fire questions if you want later.
We'll shoot some shit. I just want to get through your story. So from college radio to Ramos's company to BMG, now you pretty much know everybody in the scene. Slowly but surely, you made sure to plant your feet firmly. So where's the transition from BMG to Universal? How does that?
They basically were looking for at this time, first of all, there was no urban A&Rs in all of any of the record companies. Like even BMG really didn't have an urban A&R person. I mean, they were very, I would say, more advanced than any other label at that time because they had Ghetto Concept, they had In Essence, the R&B group, they had Sean Desmond. They were doing things that were Keisha Shante. Ivan Berry worked at BMG at that time, and if you know who Ivan is, Ivan is like one of the godfathers of hip hop in this country. He managed Dream Warriors. He managed Missy Me, who's like one of the first big rapper out of this country to actually get a record deal. Right. She actually is the first rapper to get an American deal.
Wow.
Missy Me. Before anybody else. Before my show, before anybody. It was Missy. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, so he was in the game from time. So he was working in international at that time. And he's the one who kind of pushed me for the job, to be real with you. I really didn't, I knew the job was open and I never applied.
Wow. Because
I just didn't think I was ready for it. Like I wanted to do radio.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be a guy working radio. I did.
Radio's fun. I worked radio. Like it was one of my first jobs. Was just cutting up 60-second promos that people could like just do their what's it called? Like their promo stuff over like oldie tracks.
Right.
And I'd have to like sit there with like old mixing technology. You know what I mean? And cut these tracks together. It was my first job was in radio.
For me, it was more like from the standpoint of the record company, working at a record company and being the guy who has to go to radio stations and being like, hey, here's the brand new Bless record. You got to play this shit. That was the position I wanted to have because
Crazy how much it's changed.
Because I felt like, well, that position still exists.
That's one of the few things that still exists.
But I felt
radio
like
tracker. We call
my
it.
ultimate dream was always to do A&R. But I thought that the best way for me to get there and to be the best A&R was like if I knew every radio programmer, then I could get every record I wanted fucking heard.
So
that was my thought.
So without having to do that, they hire you as the A&R.
Yeah, I basically went into I ended up taking Ivan's advice and Universal was looking because they had at the time they had Baby Blue Sound Crew.
I remember
they had they had a whole urban department that was pushing Def Jam and Interscope Records and very successful at it. Shout out Ivan Evidente. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out Ivan. I just seen him last year. I went up there to Universal and we chopped it up.
So when they were looking for somebody, they basically were looking for like an urban person. That term urban, but it's like they were.
That was like the plague of like.
What year are we in right now?
They called any
2002
and anything that wasn't
2001,
anything that wasn't like indie rock or dance music was immediately urban.
Yeah,
at the time like it wasn't defined. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So basically, they were looking for like a junior rock person and a junior urban person, and I went in there and basically said, I don't want to be your token black guy. I don't want to be your fucking token urban guy.
Good for you. Stand up.
I can sign a fucking rock act, motherfuckers. I got ears. You know what I'm saying?
Or a pop act or
and,
whoever.
and that was my shit. I was like, and on top of that, like, I want to learn A&R as A&R is. Don't put like a terminology on it.
Yeah, like, when somebody sends us a hip-hop demo, that's the only thing we're going to use Click for.
Exactly.
And they have you in a little box, you know what I mean?
I didn't want that. And I guess I don't think a lot of other people said that. I know the
Just
only
happy
other
to get what they
I know
could.
the other guy who said that was a guy named Fritz the Cat.
Fritz.
So Fritz and me both got the job as two guys who came from the hip hop community, but both were like down to do different shit.
Dope.
You know what I'm saying? So that's basically how.
So what were
we
the
ended up working
so it started with Baby Blue Sound Crew. Notable
no.
projects you worked once you got there?
I mean, the first kind of like act that I, funny enough, being in Montreal, the first act that I actually championed and brought to the label was Sam Roberts.
dope.
Not even a hip hop act.
Dope.
Somebody played me his fucking demo, and I was like, "Yo, this song, Brother Down, is a fucking smash hit."
Sam's brother Dan's a good friend of
I
mine.
used to play it every day at 10 on the fucking on the stereo, loud as fuck, because I wanted everybody to know that this song's a fucking hit. And I remember Randy Lennox used to walk by who was the president at the time, walked by my desk and says, "Man," because his office was literally like an arm away from mine. So he,
cool.
whatever I played at 10, I know he would hear it through the wall.
Perfect.
Right?
So you're subconsciously mind fucking him into doing
exactly.
the deal.
I was mind fucking everybody.
I like it.
right?
I like it.
And he walked by my desk. He's like, "Yo, you really like this song, hey?" I'm like, "Yo, this is a fucking hit." "Oh, okay, what's his name?" That type of shit.
That's what you wanted ideally, right? Was to get the circulation in the room so that maybe it goes somewhere bigger.
Exactly. So I mean, he was kind of I didn't really know how to work A&R at that stage. Like I wasn't even a year in when I was like.
Can you define that position for me? Because like I know the term.
A&R stands for artist and repertoire, which, repertoire means like the artist's music. It comes from the term like of years back when artists would write songs and that was their repertoire.
Really, as an A&R, correct me if I'm wrong, a true A&R's job would be to develop a band or an artist, to get the music polished, to have them work with the right producers and develop their real sound.
And build their repertoire.
Which maybe I could get you to talk about leads me to my next question. Do you feel like the A&R is a major position that's missing from hip-hop these days? And
From hip-hop?
And perhaps why we see the quality in some respects, going backwards a little bit? That there's a lack of people like you who are hired to make sure an artist is ready.
I think there's some players in the game.
get
There's some
me wrong. I'm
players
not
in the
saying
game
there's not.
that fit the role that do care.
Yeah.
But there's different mentality.
But it was mandatory for every project.
There's different mentality amongst like business people. How people want to sign acts. How people want to. There's certain people who aren't developers. They're not nurturers.
They just want analytics.
They just want. It's not just analytics. They want to find acts that already are good to go. They already
Established
have
already with a fan base.
They already have something, and that was a big reason why I don't work at Universal anymore. Just to be 100. Like
Fair.
I've always
fair.
been.
That was the nature of my question.
I've always been a
it's very
guy to find seeds. And I've always been a guy who likes to water seeds and likes to watch them bloom into apples.
Amazing.
And record companies, I felt they were pushing me to be like, find apples, because you keep bringing things that nobody understands or sees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was champion Drake in 2006-07 and nobody fucking got it.
That's actually the
Do you know
year
what I'm
that
saying?
I met him at
So,
your event.
I mean, I wouldn't say nobody got it because actually Randy and Alan, who was my boss, and Randy, the president, definitely we sat down and had a meeting with Drake. But when I went to try to sell it to America, because we were trying to do joint venture,
time yet.
we were trying to do a joint venture and shit.
Yeah.
It was challenging.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And that was a big thing of just like that's what's changed with the game today. That, thankful enough. Drake is being able to kick in a door in such a big way that it's made not only it's changed the mindset of the industry and how they look at Canadians from urban music standpoint,
hip hop, like
and
fully
hip-hop
accepted now,
and everything. But it's also changed the thought process of fans.
Yeah.
Because before then, even. I remember there was a time where I didn't see people wear Toronto t-shirts. I didn't see people wear
The pride wasn't-
the pride did not live in our
they had
system. And now, I think it is married with also success of sports. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
I
twofold.
remember everybody had New York hats in the 90s. Nobody was wearing a Raptors shirt. Nobody was like
Now they wear it with pride, and Drake is
there's a
popping.
huge sense of pride.
Yeah.
I can go to shows and there's like fucking 300 kids out to see a local guy from Toronto that nobody in the
Really?
rest of the
That's
world
a thing?
knows of. Yes, That's
not
the
like
thing.
a pressa, like an actual like an
I'm talking
underground.
yes, underground shit that is bubbling. There's people
support.
there because they generally like what this guy has, and that is something that never existed.
That kind of support
before.
doesn't really exist in your city until you come back.
Exactly.
Usually you have to come back.
And-
He's saying the climate is changing.
The climate has changed.
Very cool.
So and you know, there was a time when I was an A&R guy, and I remember distinctly because I signed a group called the Earths, who were on a song with Cardinal. They're part of Monolith with Danny, all those guys,
I
you
remember
know.
them, yeah.
And I remember when I was trying to pitch them to labels in the U.S., having these conversations. I'll never forget having a conversation with the A&R guy, and I wish I could remember his name, but I do know he worked for Ruckus. Right, and they had just done the deal with MCA or Interscope at the time, and I was trying to pitch to him, and he was like, there will never ever be a Canadian rap star.
Wow.
I'll never forget
Here,
this.
here.
It's like drained. It's like stained in my brain right now. Like,
It's almost like the universe, because he said that, all of this happened.
Like,
you
I
know?
remember having this conversation with him, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Like, you know what I
We're on
remember?
the cusp of that. Like, look at Socrates. Look at Sharks.
I remember what
And I
in
remember
those years.
saying all these things to him, and he was just like, "No, dude. Like, there's igloos. Like,
Oh my
there's
God, it's crazy you said that.
there's
Click.
never gonna be any fucking buddy from Canada.
They really thought there was igloos, and I remember meeting in those years with Def Jam, spit my shit, blew them away, and then they were like, "Yo, you're you know that shit's fire."
shit's dope, but you spitting icicles, son.
No, he goes, but we don't know how to market you. He goes, unless you're from Brooklyn or you're from Compton, we don't know what to do. And then they said, they got ghettos in Canada. How you know how to rap like that? Don't they have igloos and shit? I swear to you, igloos specifically was brought up at Def Jam. So
don't
he's
know.
not lying when he says
People didn't know.
There was this ridiculous, and I used to laugh. I used to say, we're as far as Boston. We're your neighboring
No,
city.
Maine's actually
We
higher
don't.
up.
Yeah, we don't walk with snowshoes.
I
We're
know. It's funny. It's
ridiculous.
But yeah, basically that's the you know, some of the acts I worked with. There was other acts. Julie Black was probably the most successful act I ever really worked with. And then there's other acts I had almost, you know, 2 steps of being involved with, but went on other places. You know,
Give us
that's just
one.
what it is.
Give us one.
One
That you would
that
have
I
liked
missed
to,
that I
yeah.
love to this day.
Yeah.
He's not a household name, but he's very successful. Is a guy named Justin Azuka. Amazing fucking singer songwriter, very soulful kid. Went on to like sign with Universal in France, and is like toured Europe and the world, and has an amazing fan base.
Dope.
You definitely have to check him out. He's
I will.
beautiful singer songwriter. But like, you know, there's just tons of those type of things that you come across. You're like, okay, let me nurture this, but then it just, you know, they end up not doing the deal with you for whatever reason, or they go somewhere else,
Sure,
or
sure.
whatever it is, you know. But
Sure.
yeah, that's
So you left Universal after a while because I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, I would think the business is starting to transition.
things were changing.
Right.
Also for me, I opportunity was basically thrown to me. Like, I had always talked about record companies. I was always talking about record companies needed to actually get into management. I was
make
actually
sense, right?
I was actually saying that like probably in 2005. I was saying, hey, we need to start managing artists, because I would go and find wicked bands and artists that had no management, or their mom was their manager, or their dog, or whatever it is.
There was
You know what I'm
there's still a
saying?
serious lack of like
The lack of management.
companies. Like, you know, there's a handful of great managers,
Right.
but they fuck with the big boys.
Exactly.
And you know, development.
Right. So
Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm curious. In today's day, and I could be wrong. You guys know a lot better than I do. Why do I feel like everyone's like homeboy or anyone's best friend manages them today? Like,
Because there's a shortage of real
Right?
professional managers.
No,
out
you know
there.
what it is?
Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're not wrong in saying that, but I think what it is,
Like, they're close. They're always
like
friends.
I'm not mad at like I'm not mad, like I'm not saying that your mom can't manage you. I'm not saying that your best friend can't manage you. They can manage you if their real true aspirations are to be
A manager.
and be in the
And not
business,
be a rapper
and they're
in
not
2 years
there,
from now.
and they're not just there because they need to support you.
Yeah.
They're more there to be like, yo, this is what I do, and I am now the
Kinda
manager,
like LeBron's
and this
play.
is what I want to. This is where I want to be with my my partner here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, LeBron did that. LeBron makes it to the NBA, and then his two best friends, he tells one of them go get a degree in business, and the other one in management, and they're his agent and his business. But
LeBron is at the top of the top of the top.
But his friends had the aspirations
and Drake's
of doing this.
Drake
as a
has
career.
brought his whole team and everything. Like there was a point where when it started, he did have some other players involved, but over time, he had the muscle to basically say, "No, I'm going to keep my own team." And
That's right. Jazz has been around since day one.
You know,
not Jazz, Jay Prince, like the younger one.
Jazz Prince.
Well, Jay Prince is more. I don't think he's, from what I know. I mean, I'm not heavily involved in their camp, but I don't think he's actually part of their management. I think he's like
he was the guy who kind of brokered the deal.
He's the guy
initially.
who brokered the deal and got them in. But like Future the Prince and Oliver and 40 and all these guys, like these are all guys that literally really did come up with him
and started with him.
are still in his circle.
Oliver used to have a boutique right next to Much. We used to go up there all the time.
So my thing is like, it's not, you can definitely have your crew and people with them. Just make sure that they are stepping up properly.
That's right.
In
They
that,
have to want
in
this as
that
a career.
position. And I was just running into people who didn't have anybody, or they had like somebody because they were too young, or their mom,
and
or
needed the development. Guys like Drake and LeBron,
they didn't have a proper
different.
They didn't have a proper business
problem.
structure. So I basically said, like, why isn't Universal just manage them? But
right.
that would be a very big, conflict of interest, and it'd be a lot of different things that would just bump in heads. So it wasn't until like 2008 that Randy basically, because things had been moving fast and things had been changing. Robbie Williams, who's like one of the first big artists from the UK, did a 360 deal with EMI, and that all of a sudden changed a lot of people's decision making on, okay, record companies like are building merchandise companies now. They're building live companies to be able to tap into that revenue, right? Yeah. So I was like, he was like, we need to do the management now. And I was like, what? Got on the phone, called a lawyer, and I figured out how to kind of make that work. And I started my management company and left A&R into management. And
so you were working management for Universal?
Yes, I was.
Ah, I did not even realize.
A lot of people didn't know that.
I didn't know.
Because I didn't sell it like that.
Right.
So that became your new position, management.
Yeah, and then...
and you started Stylus Awards around that time?
I started Stylus Awards way before that.
Way before.
Yeah.
But that's when it was like bubbling.
I was doing Stylus Awards when I worked at Universal.
I remember.
Yeah,
I was at almost all of them. But
yeah.
What year did you start?
Ran
Around
for 8 years. Ended in 2013. 2005, 6, around that time.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Is it possible they did a Stylus Awards in Ottawa one year?
Well,
or
we
maybe it was
did
something else.
No, but we did like events in every city, and
What are some of the bigger ones? There's the Stylus Awards. What are some of the bigger Canadian music awards? I forget the other one that like.
Well, he founded the Stylus Awards, which was a DJ Awards.
It wasn't just a DJ award show, and that's where it got like sticky and why I kind of like closed the door on it. But like, we after the second year we called it the Stylus Awards.
We
never called it the DJ Awards because the performances were artists. And we gave away awards to like best record of the year.
Yeah, he nominated me. Shout out for the Rod Digger.
We nominated like artists based on like
But the DJ was a prominent kind of
because that's where it started,
Gotcha.
and that was also something that I felt would be the. Basically, I took a note from the Mix Show Power Summit, to be 100% with you.
Makes sense.
The Mix Show Power Summit doesn't happen anymore, but shout out Renee.
What is it?
The Mix Show Power Summit was like a DJ summit in the U.S. where all the DJ would come into one big conference, and it's where a lot of the record companies would break records. They would come and basically have the artists come into the market. They would do a special event. They'd have T-shirts, vinyl, everything, do drops.
Introduce you nationally to the
introduce the brand new record to the DJ. Dope. And I saw how all these DJs from around all of America showed up in one spot, and then I noticed how records were being broken. And I was like, dude.
And you just spent years accumulating contacts and lists, and everyone knows your face. So if you tell everyone, come to me, they're going to show up.
And I was just also thinking about infrastructure. Like I knew that like creating an event where the whole country comes together, and you start to realize, well, who are all the players? Who are all the main DJs? And this is based on like, all the market saying who is the top DJs. And if all those top DJs are in one place, then we can also as a record company come to them and be like, yo, here's the hot new records. Here's all this. Other people are going to come in, managers. It's just going to be a hub to developing infrastructure.
And you did a great job. It
Genius.
was a great event, the
Right.
Stylus Awards.
So it worked, but then it just got to a point where like DJ culture is not like artists, where every year the artist has a new song, and if that artist isn't pop, like it's as good as the song is. And you know, in Canada, there's only a chosen few that are every year it's the same person. So we couldn't just change it to an artist format, because every year we'd be giving it to fucking Drake. Every year it was like, we need more success stories. And honestly, I think we're almost at that point where there is a lot more success
Toronto has
stories.
it. I'm still waiting for our guy. I mean, no offense, Bless, I love you, but you're way ahead of the game. You know what I mean? And you're still historically a legend, but at the same time, we don't have our guy.
Well,
Yeah, but you
we
got a
never
couple
had our
guys. You
guy.
got a couple guys that, over the years though, that has gotten some shine and some light.
Yeah.
there is definitely
Give me
some
some
dudes
names,
in this.
please.
And
I
there's
know them, but-
miscommunication because, like we were saying at the beginning, there is a lack of infrastructure, and that lack
don't
of
have record
infrastructure
labels.
doesn't expose it. So there's no urban radio here. There's no Stylus Awards here.
Right.
There's no much music here. There's no mix shows. So
There's no Sony,
how do
there's no
you want a
BMG,
guy-
there's no
how do
Columbia.
you want a guy, whether it's me or some 16-year-old kid in his basement watching this? How do you want that to bubble if there are no platforms to promote
Yeah,
that?
but the thing is,
locally,
but the thing is that
you can only pop nationally.
and I think that's the misconception that you may have, is like Toronto doesn't really have that either. Like,
Oh no, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
But certainly, at least had a fighting chance at having some outlets and
there,
some
there was a
funding.
lot more. One thing I did realize from coming to Montreal and always connecting with people, and you know, I went. You know, the other thing I did is like I did in the Hall of Fame thing. So I did the Hall of Fame thing for myself, of learning about the history of every city. You know, so you know, putting
Was that the cards?
Pusha T and Butcher T and who else did I put in? OG DJ from Montreal. Oh fuck. It's on the tip of my tongue and I can't.
Mike Mission?
Huh?
Mike
No,
Mission?
way before that. Way before. I'm talking 80s.
Okay,
you know what
well,
I'm
so-
saying? But like, I'm sorry. Whoever's listening, I'm sorry. It will come to me and they'll be like, yo, that's what I'm talking about. But
Say
my
it in the
point
comments,
is,
guys.
I did it in all and every, like I did in Vancouver, did it in Calgary, did it in, like, I wanted people to realize that the culture of hip hop and R&B didn't just start overnight.
Yeah, of course.
This has been birthed from DJs and MCs and promoters and people in the scene who have cultivated what we have now.
That's right.
And by telling that story, you learn something. And when I did the one in Montreal, I learned a lot, because it's the only market that has the most fucking complexity because of the language.
I think you
barrier.
interviewed me when you came to Montreal.
I did. I interview, and I learned from talking to all these Montreal guys the whole complexity of the fact that there's Francophone and English, and how the English people are treated as
So Greater Toronto is what, like 7 million or something, 6 million people. I think we're half that, and then you divide it in half again because of the French.
that too. But there's also the internal business bullshit.
Yeah.
The internal
grants
business
and all the-
infrastructure.
They wanna give
of-
the grants
of
to promote French culture.
Of Quebec and all that stuff that was really hurting
Different out
English
here, man.
rap, right?
Yeah.
And I learned
It was
that,
making it
and
impossible to get
I-
funded.
And then there's the crabs in the bucket mentality that was happening in the scene as well, where Toronto had, I almost felt like Montreal was 10 years behind where Toronto was.
Infrastructure-wise, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. I'm not talking about
Absolutely.
artistic wise.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about
You're
like
right.
the scene and how it
We're
could get
your
out of
grimy
something.
little brother.
Pardon me?
We're your grimy little brother.
Disorganized, grimy little brother.
Yeah. But that's something that I definitely like learned from doing the Stylus stuff, was like just going across the country, of
course,
learning about the history of scenes and I love that shit. You know what I'm saying? And you know,
you're still doing it to this day, so.
I really like. I have a lot of people always come and say, "Yo, when's Stylus coming back?" I'm like, I'm not bringing that shit back. It was so much fucking work. You know
I
what
bet
I mean?
it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of
I
work.
used to see his
But
face. He was stressed
but
out. Boy,
I gotta
the day of
give.
the
I
event.
gotta give Mike Z. Like, I couldn't have started the Stylus Awards without Mike Z. Mike was he owned Flavor Pool, which was the biggest DJ record pool in the country at that time. So he also had all the relationships and had already been doing
the lists of the
award
DJs and
shows
everything.
before the Stylus Awards for Flavor Pool DJs. And he came to me and was basically like, "Yo, I want to do an award show again for the DJs." And I said, "Well, if you're gonna do it, you got it. You got to cut down that whole record pool bullshit and open it up to everybody.
That's right.
And you got to make it national. And that's all of a sudden how the Stylus Awards
And
was
it really did. Everybody, you know, we got a chance to like, as artists, to network with guys from different pockets of the country. Like the Montreal and Toronto guys, we knew each other because I was always in Toronto with these guys. But like to meet guys from, you know, Winnipeg and other guys from Ottawa and put everybody in an auditorium. And Drake would come out all the time too. And shit.
It wasn't just like for the artists, it was DJs too. Like I know DJs who had never met each other before, and now they toured to, like I think like Pump and DR and
Raph and DR,
all those guys had all built relationships from actually meeting each other at some of these things, and all of a sudden DJs were touring and going other places that they never usually
Grand
did.
Theft's doing great,
and everybody was literally fucking putting Stylus Award nominee, or everybody's putting on all their flyers everywhere you look. That shit was being pushed to help sell themselves,
and you
know?
could see my point as how important and integral the infrastructure and the movement and the scene is in order to catapult an artist to success. There has to be more going on besides a song.
Yeah,
it's a movement.
It's definitely a movement.
There's events.
It's also connecting with people, which I noticed you've always known about that from time. You're like, yo, we're gonna go to this thing. We're gonna go to that thing.
Had to be my.
Like, you can't live in your basement.
My biggest problem, and to add to what you just said, that I've always, and I did a couple of shows just to give you a quick, like, I did probably like, I don't know, 50, 60 of my own like hosted events and stuff. So I have a little bit of like an inclination of like who's here and who's doing what. My biggest problem that I have with unsigned, like we'll call them local artists, I don't like that term, is when they readapt based on what's trending. And they're always like maybe a year or two behind being themselves.
Are you talking about like
a guy who raps like Wayne and then raps like Kanye? And then raps
that's 100 what's going on right now.
I hate that.
That's 100.
And guess what, guys?
I know, but
guess what, guys? Are you ready for the punchline?
Go.
That's what happened when you remove the A&R from the equation. There is no OG guiding.
You can't put all the blame on A&Rs like that.
No, I'm not putting the blame. I'm saying we need the A&Rs back.
The way the structure of it is.
So hip-hop culture doesn't rapidly
It won't happen. No, Bless, I'm telling you right now.
I don't think it will happen, but
Bless,
it's a shame.
It has nothing to do with A&Rs. It has to do with the culture, and has to do with the way that the industry is built now. Like you have a digital digital world
that goes without
just
saying.
axes out A&R. It axes out
Cuts out the middleman. Yeah.
Like there is no middleman anymore.
Makes
so
sense.
There's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no what's the word I'm looking for?
Gatekeeper.
Not gatekeeper, like controller.
Right.
Gatekeeper,
No one to filter out.
I guess I don't like using gatekeeper, but it's like somebody, like there was a scene when somebody like, yo, yes, you are dope. This song is dope. So now you get in the system.
That is exactly
now
my
that
point,
doesn't
though.
exist
And
because everybody can put the shit up. And kids that don't know any better or just follow the trends, you know, get behind something that's dope, and it doesn't matter if it sounds like somebody else from yesterday,
or if the mix is not even properly sonically, it's not up to par
because it just happens to sound cool and hot to what they like already.
Their
in the
ear
moment,
is used to that.
And I noticed that, like, even when I sit and I talk to like, you know, I always ask like my young new students to come into play and stuff. I'm like, do you care when you go to shows and rappers are rapping over top of their verses? Or they're singing.
Is that allowed? Like, is that something that you?
Are you singing auto tune?
Can you condone that?
Or they can't sing at all.
For us, it was a faux pas. Like you didn't want to do that.
Or you can't sing. Or you can't sing at all. And does that bother? Like, does it bother you?
Yeah.
I'd say more than half don't care.
Well,
so it tells me that the kid, like young generation,
they're not paying attention to that.
Their meter of like what matters is not the same as what we grew up on.
Yeah.
What is and I feel like I'm also not a grumpy old guy where one of these guys in the past would be like, oh, we need to school them. Like, yo,
you gotta move with the time.
It's a new generation. Let them do what they want to do. Let them be what they want to be. That's what it is.
Medias and
I think as hip hop, as hip hop heads though, we were looking for a certain level of polish. You know what I'm saying?
There was also a code to the streets. That's just what it is. There was a code to the things. It's like you did not bite. You did not do your
block.
Those are the things that just came with the game.
Is this,
you know what I'm saying?
My point is this: don't you feel coming from your background, from the background as an A&R, seeing both eras? Don't you feel like hip hop would benefit tremendously from the power players playing more of a position of gatekeeper. Really, the Diddy's and the J's and these guys really saying, you know what, instead of just moving with metrics, which we know business is business, it's going to be done, there needs to be a minimum quality control to preserve the culture.
I think like if
I know it's idealistic.
If you sign with any major, there's going to be that anyway.
Thank
They're
God.
not going to let something
Thank
go
God.
out the door that wasn't properly mixed or mastered or
Thank
taken
God.
care of. That's a guarantee.
Thank God.
Right?
And
But I do think that a lot of them are aligning with like teams that already have things in motion.
Sure.
So they're not like taking
In full
somebody
control.
they're not taking somebody like, oh, yo, you can spit or you can sing. Okay,
Yeah,
let
yeah,
me
I know
start
that.
with you and let's just go. You have no fans. Let me help you build that. Nobody's doing that.
Obviously.
So my point is, if they see something that's already working, they might give their 2 cents. But think about it. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. You're a rapper who's already got like, millions of fucking streams, thousands of
You ain't trying to hear
followers,
shit.
and you're gonna tell me how to do my shit? Motherfucker, I
I'm
got
already
people on my
working.
show. I'm already
I'm
doing
already
it. Like
good, yeah.
what unless you're like the relationship and the trust is there with somebody.
You look at- you
and
said
somebody
Diddy.
and somebody's like, yo, I really want to get better at what I do.
That's right.
But I don't know. My opinion with hip hop is I think like there's a lot of egos in rap right now. Like,
There's always
there's always been, but I feel it's like, I don't know. There's not the level of consciousness in what I'm hearing does not exist at all in the
No, of
mainstream.
course. So it's
So
different
the way that they're doing music right now is on a party flex, pills, all types of shit
know
that
that.
doesn't even give them a chance to come back to reality. Be like, how can I be better?
But then you
they're
know
just
what?
like, yo, let's fucking get crunk and let's have a good time. And what's working for me is working. Let's make this money. Let's move. Let's go.
Right now,
that's what it
right
is.
now, that formula is obviously working. Cookie cutter, it's working. Everybody has colorful hair. Everybody has diamond chokers. Everybody has diamond chokers, colorful hair, face tattoos,
Say no.
and
But face
rapping
tattoos-
well.
Everybody's
and rapping,
got chokers?
Everybody's got diamond chokers now.
Chokers.
Like this short.
Everybody.
Like 90% of bubbling charting
he's right.
rappers. Facts. And
He's right.
And rapping really well is a liability.
SMS shit is so good.
Yo, Click, how is rapping really well a liability? A liability right now. But do you feel like, yes, that is the cookie cutter, easy tramp stamp. That's the easy, you know what I mean? That's the easy one. But how do you explain a guy like Kendrick and J. Cole being so embraced? I think the public's palate hasn't just changed.
Believe
the culture is being manipulated and shifted.
I do want to say I don't think everything is in one pocket. I do think that there's certain things that get through and it's an anomaly.
You get your hip hop anywhere now.
But I also think that those ones that are anomaly that get in,
It's not the majority. It's the minority.
it's because they also have something very fucking special. I'm sorry, but Kendrick is very special.
100%.
I'm sorry, but J. Cole is very special.
But the people
Logic is even special.
Absolutely,
Like
but-
all these
but-
guys that you want to put into that bucket of bars, even
They are
Pusha
special.
T, even like all
great
these
album
guys.
name, by the way.
It's because
but
they
people's
they
tastes
have,
haven't changed. They fucking love that shit.
They exactly.
So there's still a
I go to their
massive market
concerts.
for
There's
that.
tons of people there for there. I
Still a
mean,
massive
even though
market.
Drake sings, he does rap too.
And Drake
Do you know
raps
what I'm
fucking
saying?
well.
So my
We
point,
can't
my,
take that
my
away from
point
him.
is like it still exists and there's a space for everybody. You know what I'm saying? I understand where you're trying to go with asking about the question of like, I guess, A&R and regulating, what gets done.
Making
and
sure
how
there's
it
a
gets
quality
done.
control.
Makes there's
Minimum quality
happening.
control.
I get it. And I think it does exist. And I think that if you're not feeling like it exists, it's because the person who's letting that other shit go through is what they want to go through.
Oh, for sure.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like that's
100%.
like it's gone through because somebody says that's what we're doing.
We're pushing this.
Yeah.
That's what we believe in and that's working, so let's go.
And it is
that's just
working,
what
not to
is.
take it away from anybody.
Right.
I'm just playing devil's advocate asking these questions because I know where I stand on it, and I'm pretty sure I know where he stands, but you do have a unique perspective being that guy from that background.
Yeah.
You were and are a gatekeeper, not in a bad way, in a good way, because you were giving a shot to shit you believed in and you wanted to make sure it was as dope as possible before you put your name to it.
Right. I think the hardest thing for me is you got to remember I left before like the internet blew up, before like, Instagram was live, before Spotify was live. I didn't have those tools.
YouTube was still there.
YouTube was still there, but
coming.
it wasn't guys wasn't using it like that.
No,
you know what
I
I'm
know.
saying?
It wasn't
And-
the end all and be all. It's
Right.
all social media.
So my point is, I I sit and I look at where things are now, and I'm like really, really happy, and I see how it's being able to help out our industry, and what's happening
especially hip hop,
all across Canada,
especially
and not just hip hop. Like to me right now, like I'm all about soul. Like I love soul music, man.
Absolutely.
Like I think soul music is one of the best pop and shit that's happening right now in this country.
You know, Boosie's coming out with a soul album?
Electronic soul vibes. There's dope shit coming out of like almost every fucking province. This guy's doing some cool shit that I actually think cuts through easier than other shit. And I think just because of the conservative bullshit of where we live. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like, I'm really happy to see what is striving, what's popping. And I think the hardest thing for artists now, it's not so much about getting out the gate. It's about getting over the hill once you've got to the top of the hill.
Nice.
Because I think like getting to our top of the hill, there's no excuses. Like if you're telling me, oh, yo, man, I'm trying to fucking get, I'm like, you have too many excuses.
Yeah, just work harder.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I did a lecture the other day at a university, and I forget the question, but he just said something like, you know, what about like, you know, I got a mortgage, I got like responsibilities, like how do I get out? And I said, yo, that's an excuse, man. Like if how bad do you really want this? Like if you really want to get to the show, you need to get yourself to the show.
100%.
And it's like, I think like once artists have got themselves to a top of a hill, they become emerging. We have a lot of artists at the top of a hill right now in this country. The hardest thing for them now is how do they get beyond that, jumping on the clouds.
I think that's catching,
you know what I mean?
break.
How they start getting above the clouds, you know?
I have a question though.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
100%.
that's really what it is. And I think the hardest thing with that comes down to infrastructure, and
that's why I keep going back to that.
And how it comes down to like the movers and shakers and how brilliant their minds are, and also comes down to, unfortunately, capital,
funding, and you got to catch a break too. I mean, you can be the best musician.
You're saying the opposite of what he's saying. It is not about catching a break. It is about wiggling your way into a position
hold on.
where you are emerging. But how does that happen? You need outlets, you need infrastructure, and you need funding.
I get you.
I'm saying
going around
to getting up the hill into where we are now, the internet can take you up a hill very fastly. And there is infrastructure, there is media outlets, there is all these things that you can get on shows. There's a lot of
plateau, every
your level. But once you get to the next level, how do you now become a household?
That's what I was saying.
There's a household name, touring around the world, making bread.
Yeah.
How do you get to that next level? And that is that's a very challenging element.
What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is really thinking outside of your block, taking your artists outside of the block, meaning when I say outside the block, I mean outside your city. It's traveling, it's networking, and then it's being creative in the decisions that you make that will take an artist to that next level. And being very specific and very, dialed in on like, okay, this move we're making because it's going to take us to this next point. And it's not just like, okay, I'm trying to get a buzz. I'm trying to get my numbers up. It's not about that. It's like the numbers come after the moves that you've made to get you there. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's the result of making.
Because you've already gotten to a point. Now, how do I sustain that to the next level? And that just comes down to like brilliant minds.
And you know what? Can I just interject real quick? The reason we wanted to start this platform was for people to kind of be able to soak in this kind of game, because this business and this culture could be so overwhelming. Like, where do you start? This is a huge
thing. And to me, I'm like, yo, you're stupid if you're asking me that question. I'm sorry to say that shit, but it's like, yo, go on YouTube. Go to the music store. There's so many information to tell you how to like get out the gate. Like I teach it at schools now, but I always sit back and like, why? Like maybe they need like a one-to-one communication of education,
or somebody just to organize this.
But to understand the basics is not hard now.
No.
And to get yourself a song up on SoundCloud and out, and all of a sudden you happen to get in front of somebody, and all of a sudden you're popping, or you found somebody who's really good at knows somebody at Pigeon and Plains, or somebody who knows somebody at Fade, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden your shit's on there. All of a sudden you buzzing. But then once you're buzzing, how do you sustain the buzz,
Take that
and
to
actually move forward to the next level. And that's where I think that's the hardest thing for some artists. And that's where experienced people that have a strategy, like understand strategy making, understand planning, understand organizing, and understand networking. Because it's all about how do you align all those things together to actually build a career for somebody.
I'm with you. I'd like to do a quick thing. Rapid fire. Couple sentences, like 1 or 2 sentences. Because I have like industry questions that I want to ask you.
Shoot.
Okay, I won't even go into much more detail. Music conferences, are they a waste of time? And does anyone ever get a deal from them?
They're not a waste of time. They're definitely not a waste of time. I'm actually here in Montreal because of my music conference.
Help people connect.
And deals definitely get done at music conferences, but they don't necessarily get done right at that moment in time. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I came here 3 years ago, met somebody, and I made some money this year with that person.
Okay. So it's a networking thing.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. What's the difference between ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and which one should an artist join?
They're all the same.
Yeah, no, I don't know. These are questions that I took just that I want to ask you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're all performance society collectors. They collect your money from your songs being on the radio, television, film, whatever you want to call it. And really, what it comes down to is like in Canada, there's pretty much SOCAN or the one Sodrac in Quebec. But in the US, there's a multiple ones. You can pick which one you want to go to.
Okay.
But
that makes sense.
In terms of like which one you want to go to, I would say if you were in America and you're trying to figure that out, I would go and have conversations with all of them and see who is the most intrigued
you can sit down and talk to them directly.
Yeah, yeah, they're so open to that.
In the age that we're in today, does the public really prefer singles or albums?
Singles.
Yeah, the album format's they're not even called albums, they're called playlists.
Singles. It's definitely singles. And it's mainly because, you know, the outlets push the single to the people, and people are utilizing these playlist formats to discover music, and that's why it's become a singles market again.
Yeah, 100%. This one's a little bit tougher to answer.
Just ask a question, goddammit.
How can a new artist tap into money outside of their bubble, let's say going overseas or doing a tour outside of their wheelhouse, outside of their comfort zone? How do they get money? How do they make bread?
I think it's about being creative. Like, you know, I know, for example,
merch, would you say?
Well, yeah, merch, like those are the fundamentals. Like,
low-hanging fruit.
Doing a show, you'll make some money. Do up some shirts, you'll make some money.
That's very basic funding, though.
But I think being smart from a standpoint of like aligning with brands that can work for you. So it's like, you know, I know an artist right now who like aligned with Remy Martin. They didn't do a record deal. They aligned with a liquor company who basically, you know, paid for their cross Canada tour. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, and they utilize that to like kind of launch the artist's career. And I think like you have to think outside the box.
Alternative ways of getting that money.
And then Remy can help give you cross promo
because you
brands.
don't always need to think that the record company's the end spot. And and also living in Canada, we have funding that's at your fingertips. You know, you can. It's not guaranteed, but you can apply, and if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Every artist who's trying to do this as a career needs to be applying religiously for all the grants they could be eligible for every round. And I definitely agree with Click. Beyond the obvious, you know, they can give you some money for tour support to help you sustain your campaign, but cross promo is more important than ever with social media. So if you have brands that have a few 100,000 followers or a few million followers, that's going to be priceless to creating awareness for, you know, you as an artist.
Smart. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Last one. Gotta look at my notes again. Sorry. With the influx of SoundCloud and a lot of indie artists, do you think there's going to be a music industry in 20 years from now? Or do you think it's going to be like? Do you think no? But you look at like the A&Rs and the Def Jam. They're small offices now. They're not these big.
The I don't really call these music. I don't really call it a music industry anymore. Call it entertainment industry.
Amazing.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, because these companies are buying into brands, they're working with they're working with artists who actually are selling a brand more than they are selling their music.
Didn't Pandora streaming get sold for like billions of dollars? Like a lot of people don't realize, and I think it was Steve Stout that was talking about this. Like the business of music is making more money than ever. It's just in a different, it's a non-traditional way. We're not selling physical albums and CDs and books or whatever.
Right.
But the sales are through the roof. Don't get that twisted.
Yeah.
And with this being at everybody's fingertips and
Well,
people being
the
starved
other
for
thing,
content,
that's
well,
where my
the
question is.
other thing is this, is that when you say this at the fingertips, actually, not even like half the world actually has telephones. Like there's actually,
I'm in North America, you know.
yeah,
whatever.
but what my point is that there is an untapped market that is still going to
In
grow
emerging countries.
in emerging countries and other
Great point.
places.
Hand over fist, word of mouth.
Africa is like a major spot of growth.
Sure.
There's a lot of places in this world where the phone is still not where we want it
Everybody
to be.
can't afford a
The band-
$900 phone
the
and
band,
fucking-
the bandwidth is not where it
Yeah.
has to be yet. There's so much room for growth there.
yeah.
There's also a lot of room in just creativity and ideas and new ways of doing things. I think what you might see, which I don't know because I really don't, but the fact that it's very interesting to see where like Spotify is gonna go in the next. I'd say I really, the fact that they, you know, they operate, in my opinion, they're starting to position themselves almost like a label.
I was just
course.
going to
You know
get
what
to
I'm saying?
that.
100%.
So, and you read a lot about that. But at the same time, the labels also are still partners with them, so they probably have to tread lightly. But it's interesting because, like, you know, they have ownership in DistroKid, which is a distributor. They basically have studios they own
They're Big
now.
Brother.
They're producing concerts now. They're selling tickets.
That's what I thought.
They're more in every aspect of the artist's career right now.
Logically,
in a better way than actually a record company is.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Well, they are going to be the new record companies. Logically, that's what I think. As there was the top 5 majors back in the day, they'll be the top 5, let's say,
Yeah.
streaming, and they'll be doing exclusive shit just for their
that's why
service.
it's
Like
the record-
I imagine, it's funny because the record companies have had websites. They've had all these things before Spotify came along. But I think more artists probably sell more tickets off of Spotify and more T-shirts and more vinyl off of Spotify website than they do off of
and
their
it's a
own record company's
self-sustaining
website.
and it's a self-sustaining monetization mechanism, because if Spotify decides to push your project
Right.
and put you on the homepage, they know it'll generate this much revenue, and that can be your tour support,
too.
that can be your development, that could be your budget.
But at the same time, Spotify is not like the be end all of all. Like, I mean, they're
Spotify's
not.
not a
and there'll
record
be
label
new
yet.
generations.
No,
of
but I
that.
mean, my point is like Apple's still a huge competitor in the market. There's there's other platforms as well. You got the Titles, you got the Deezer, and other territories. There's things that we don't even realize are huge in other countries because they're not huge here. Like Deezer is still a huge platform in France, but not really over here. You know what I'm saying? So there's the market. It's
gonna develop.
Always develop, but there will always be a record company.
There'll
There
always
will
be-
always be.
So that
a
was
record
my
company.
question was with the streaming platforms and with the way that people go independent, do you think it's possible that we could weed out, and I don't want to call them middlemen because they're the actual business.
But you won't weed it out. Instead of signing to Interscope, you're going to sign to Apple Music in the future, and Jimmy Iovine from Interscope will be the guy signing your check again at Apple Music.
Okay, fine.
Because I think he's already up there.
Yeah, well,
Isn't he?
I think
Okay, correct me
he's
if
no
I'm
longer
wrong.
at Apple now, but he was definitely.
industry's
was there.
repositioned
Yeah, I
itself
don't know
is
if
what-
I shouldn't even say that.
It's
I'm not
repositioned.
100% sure.
I believe
But-
they've repositioned.
But my point is, I hear where you're going with it. What I'm trying to say is that there'll always be companies that have muscle, that have a foothold in the industry,
Market share. They
and a
control
market
the
share, and they have the relationships, and they have the catalog, and they have-
foresight to know what the next play is too.
not just the foresight, but they have the means, the muscle,
Yeah.
to actually force things through the
right.
pipelines.
You're
better
going to
than
play
any
this
other independent
record.
person.
He's going to open for this tour.
and
because-
that's just what it is.
Fair,
yeah,
fair.
business, right? So where are you right now? What are you working on now?
I'm an artist manager now, and I also teach at Remix Project.
Talk about the Remix Project. Tell us about it.
Remix is a artist incubator program in Toronto and in Chicago, and we just had our graduation last week.
It's an actual school.
Yeah, it's like a school. Remix is a school, but it's like it's not your typical school because like you have to audition to get in. It's no fee to get in. It's it's a non-profit organization, and
Any kind of artist?
It's more geared towards like hip hop and R&B and that type of thing.
Producers,
but,
things.
You know,
of that
there's
nature.
3 tiers. There's a entrepreneur tier. There's a creative tier, which is more for like people that are art graphic designers, photographers, videographers. And then there's also the artist program where there's like DJs, producers, songwriters, and you know, we have about in the artist program we have about actually I think it's almost all programs around 15 students in each program. And for 9 months, they basically go and network and connect and learn and
like a workshop,
create you know, music together and learn about the business and really build a community. It's really about they building community amongst themselves,
which is what we keep talking about,
and
absolutely essential.
And also a support system amongst themselves, because now you're with an elite artists that have been picked to be in the program based on their skill sets.
So,
you know what I mean?
That's
tremendous opportunity.
And it really started because like, you know, there was a need for that, but also it was really geared towards like inner city youth and people that basically were, you know, trying to help people, give them outlets. And now it's like, I think it's not just that. It's like it's gone way bigger than that. And I think a lot of that's because of Jessie Rios. You know what I mean? Like she came through the program, and now she's a huge advocate and supporter. She doesn't stop talking about it. So now every time we have a new round, which right now you can apply it to Remix. I think the deadline is either the end of November or December.
Where can they apply? Tell them.
Just go on to the remix.ca, remixproject.ca, and you can find out more information about it. But it's like, you know, I've been a big supporter of them from the very beginning. I was being there from the very beginning, and I teach, you know, artist development there. You know what I mean? So,
amazing.
And I love it. I really do. Like,
really cool, man.
You know, I like it because, you know, the artists that come through are very enthusiastic. You know, I teach at another school where half the students in the room, I don't even know if they're listening to me. And I think it's maybe their parents are paying their tuition or something. You know what I mean? Like,
these guys and girls are hungry.
Where these guys, it's like they auditioned to get into this program. Like we had over 400 applicants last year. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a lot of applicants, you know, and now we're talking about opening up schools in Vancouver and Halifax and I just think like the way that it's set up is it really gives people the tools. We don't open the door for them to get into the industry, but we definitely show them the outlets and opportunities for that. And it's really what they do with it that makes it count, you know? Cool. And, you know, artists like Wonder Girl, she came through the program and had records with Jay-Z, and Rich Kid, who now teaches there as well. He runs the program. You know, he was one of the first students in Remix. And there's a lot like Hagler, who, you know, produced Drake, and he's, you know, that I think that's a big thing too. Like 40 used to, before Drake blew up, 40 was actually he ran the audio program there.
With Gavin in the beginning.
Yeah, so he basically, you know, a lot of Drake's early years were actually recording at Remix Project. So, you know, and a lot of the students that all come and work with
kind of heard about that,
have kind of come out of Remix Project. Amazing. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like it was birthed there. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
And it's been an incubator.
It's an incubator. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of dope producers, dope artists that just like are doing amazing things. You know, I'm excited tonight. Molly Sways is performing at M from Montreal out here. Dope. He was actually in the program with Jesse, you know, like 3-4 years ago. So he's out here performing tonight. Shot him out. So it's like, you know, I'm just excited to see and be in tune with like this young new talent and see their hunger and then also like my whole thing is just trying to give them the knowledge and tools that I have, that I've been able to gain from this industry and give it back to them and watch it flourish and become an apple.
Amazing.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, definitely,
back to talking about planting seeds.
Dude, the seed planters in the building.
I love the positivity. Honestly, like just the vibe that you give off, that like you're doing this to give back, you're doing this to better other people. It's selfless. I commend you for it.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah,
I
cool.
appreciate it. You know, like I just, you know, that's what keeps me sane. Like if I wasn't that dude, then I would just be like a slime ball. You know what I'm saying? Like I would be a slime ball. You know what I mean? Like if I wasn't that, I'd be a slime ball. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like I have to you know, be that dude out there giving back, and
different
I learned too. Like, I don't think I know it all. You know, I'm not here.
Everything's evolving.
I'm not here boosting that I'm the know-it-all guy. Like,
Everything's evolving.
You know, that's why I also like doing these things, because I'm learning from these cats. I'm learning from them too. Like, what's the next thing, and why do they?
It's the wave, and
exactly. You know, and I manage artists now, so for me, it also keeps my finger on the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you. He has to be somewhere.
Yeah, I gotta go.
He has to go somewhere.
Well, thank you very much, Click.
Yes, sir.
Coming, my brother.
Bam, bam.
Thank you for your contributions to Canadian hip hop over the years, and for your continued efforts to keep fucking letting the scene flourish, man. And we could use a lot more players like Click, and hopefully the next cats that are watching this will be interested to follow his steps and maybe help develop the scene more.
Respect. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to see you, man.
Thank you.
Always.
Hopefully
pleasure,
I can come back and issue 105 or something like that.
I would love that.
And I'm not interviewed, and we could just sit and talk some bullshit and play some music for each other and just have a good time. That's what I thought I was coming here for. What the fuck, yo?
Instead it was a special on you.
Yeah. What the fuck, yo?
Surprise.
I'll send you an invoice.
Thank you again.
You're locked into the moment of truth. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on, Click. As usual, I'm your boy Bless, the homie Let Me Know behind the boards, and this is the moment of truth.
Represent one time on the M.O.T.